So what's Forged Steel all about? This is a paint color by Sherwin-Williams, and some people describe it as a charcoal gray, an off black. What is it really, and how can you best use it in your home? That's what Color Quickie is all about. A quick video all about a paint color, all the details that are going to be useful for you. And of course, at the very end, I'm going to give you a color palette that I built all based around this wonderful color. So stick around and let's get right into it. So to start things off, Forged Steel by Sherwin-Williams is a really dark paint color. We all know that. But more importantly, it's actually one of the newer colors by Sherwin-Williams. It was released as part of the Emerald Designer Color Collection, and this collection is composed of 200 paint colors that were designed specifically for Sherwin-Williams Emerald paint. And that is their premium line of products, Emerald Interior and Emerald Urethane. And one of the first things I want to do is go on the Sherwin-Williams website, check out Forged Steel's page, and click on that full details drop down, because there's a lot of really important information for us to peruse and investigate. The first thing you'll see is LRV, which of course is the light reflectance value. Essentially, this is a 0 to 100 percentage of how much light the color reflects. So the fact that Forged Steel comes in at 10 makes it quite dark. The next thing down you'll notice is the RGB value, and this is something that is more so important to consider when looking at digital colors. You can kind of interpret it as an electronic formula, but the one thing that I noticed is the fact that all three of those RGB values are very close to one another. We have two identical numbers and then one that's off by 2 points. Just for context, colors that have a completely equal RGB value range, it essentially means they're completely grayscale. So it's a perfect gray, which means Forged Steel is not far off. You just dial back a little bit of that blue to give it a very, very slight earthy brown purple quality almost, but it is quite subtle. And I don't often compare colors in these kind of videos, but I wanted to in this one because I made a fun little observation with another color called Iron Ore by Sherwin-Williams, another very, very sought after off black, and it has nearly the same sort of RGB, just much lower and therefore darker. As you can see, Iron Ore has a 67, a 67, and a 65. So that same sort of pattern with a bit less blue. So it's pretty safe to say that Forged Steel really is just a slightly lighter version of Iron Ore. And I think it's a great thing because you have two options of varying depth, and they're concrete to their actual colors, rather than just picking Iron Ore and then telling the person at the paint store, can you make it a bit lighter? How light? You don't know. Now I think what's nice here is Forged Steel just has enough of that lightening to make it a little more usable for a lot of people, assuming you don't want to go with a rich, super deep, dark black color for whatever purpose, whether it's an accent wall or maybe a piece of furniture, dark trim, things like that. It just gives you a little more nuance because it does reflect a bit more light, so it can change throughout the day a little bit more than a really dark, low LRV color would. Now, because Forged Steel is very much neutral, it gives it a lot more usability amongst other colors and other color schemes and design styles. So I honestly could see it working in a number of situations. Not necessarily a main color, maybe not even a room color in many cases, but definitely in those accent situations. Accent ceilings if you want something really dark and moody, a wall behind the TV in a family room, finding those strategic locations where you want some dramatic depth. Anything you really want to pull focus towards, this is a great color to do that with. In terms of color pairings, we have obviously 3 wall colors and 2 trim colors. I really like this palette. I think it all sort of fits together really nicely, starting with White Duck, which is a beautiful warm off-white, a little bit beigey, but it also simultaneously feels just a touch cooled down. Not to the point where it feels blue, but you don't have an overdose of yellow or like a bright creaminess. It's more subtle and toned down, which suits Forged Steel perfectly. And being at a 74 LRV, this is a much lighter color. Great candidate for the larger parts of your homes. Definitely a room color if you want to completely cover all the walls with it. And anywhere you want that dark contrast, you can use Forged Steel in those cases. I really do see White Duck being the predominant color in this palette, and then the other colors support it in a number of different ways. The second color I want to talk about is Backdrop, which is another dark color. It has a 20 LRV, which is technically twice as light, I guess, as Forged Steel, and you're also introducing a lot more brown. So it's sort of a shaded brown. Almost like if you took brown and then mixed it with dark gray, like a charcoal or a slate gray, which in turn will make forged steel really look gray and will essentially erase that sort of browny purpleness that you might see, especially when it's used in the same space. I just think Backdrop is a wonderful alternative to forged steel. In case you don't want to rely on it too heavily, it gives you another dark color option within the neutral family, one that does lean a little more towards that warm side of things. My accent color might surprise some people. It is not a dark, rich, vibrant color. It's actually a pastel. It's called Window Pane, and it's this beautiful, airy, light aquamarine type of color. It is fairly toned down with gray, but it's playful and fun, and it just brings some life and freshness to the palette. We started with some neutrals, some darker colors. This one is essentially a similar LRV to White Duck, so they do kind of play in that same ballpark, but clearly you have something very different here. You're introducing that color hue, that bit of blue that really cuts through nicely, and I don't think it's aggressive enough color-wise to make it seem kind of polarizing and weird. It's a color that I could see working in a lot of different rooms. It perhaps is a little more avant-garde for people that are just used to gray and beige, but I think that's kind of the reason I chose it. It'll help you push past that anxiety of actually having some color in the main parts of your home and not just limiting them to your powder room or your bedrooms. I encourage you to explore using this color in places like your living room, your family room, your kitchen, stuff like that. Now, if we're talking trim colors for your baseboards, your doors, your frames, your wainscoting, if you have it, I think pure white is going to be a great choice for a lot of people. Typically, off-white is just a no-brainer when it comes to woodwork because it feels clean, it's fresh, it's classic, it's kind of a timeless look. But if you wanted something darker, maybe a little more colorful, a little more interesting and artsy, Jasper Stone would be my second trim color choice for the people that want that richness and just a darker color overall. That being said, Forged Steel, which is, you know, in the title of this video, also a great trim color. So if you just wanted to default that as a dark trim choice for the rest of the palette and then have Jasper Stone as your darker accent color, you could totally do that too. And I think I can best exemplify that by just showing you the color palette all together. How do we like it? Kind of like this one a lot, actually. And if you've made it this far, you can support us in ways other than liking and subscribing. You can also click the join button and become a monthly channel member to support our full-time YouTube journey. It's been quite a journey so far, and you are not going to want to miss this video.